There's a good chance that you are overthinking the seller net sheet. When I was first starting out, I was trying to figure out how to get ready for a listing appointment, and I knew that a seller net sheet was something that I needed to bring, but I didn't know how to do one. And I asked for an example one from someone in my office, and they gave me this like 3-page long spreadsheet with tons of items on it. There's like 100 different things on there, and it just made no sense, and it just confused me. Today, I'm going to show you the 4 things that you need to do a seller net sheet, and then at the end, I'm going to give you some frequently asked questions that sellers often have when you're at that listing appointment, so you're ready to go. I'm Frank Kritzman, former EOD for the U.S. Air Force, and now I'm a real estate agent on the beautiful Emerald Coast of Florida. Before we jump right into it, I just want to briefly touch on why a seller net sheet is important. A seller net sheet informs the seller about all the expenses that are related to selling their home and gives them an idea of how much money they're going to walk away with at the end. Imagine this. Someone asks you to sell their house, you sit down for the appointment, and at the end they say, how much money am I going to get when this house sells? And then you have no idea. That's a bad look. So we're going to avoid that. All right, let's get into it. This is my beautiful net sheet that I created for me and my team, and as you can see, it only has 4 items on it. First one is the sales price. If the seller has already mentioned a number to you that they want to start at, and that's what you guys have agreed upon, run the net sheet based off of that price. But if they haven't mentioned a number to you, do it on your best estimation based off the CMA, or you could even do 2, a high end and a low end one, and then they have a range and just kind of an idea of numbers they're going to work with. So you have your sales price, and the first thing that's going to come out of that is the title fees. I'm going to put a link right here. You can go to that website and prepare a title estimate, and you want to bring that with you to the appointment. Show the seller the title estimate and make sure that they know that some parts of that could be paid by either the buyer or the seller. It just depends on who selected the title company in the offer and who paid the title charges. The seller is going to pay for the recording and the transfer fees either way, so you can just do the net sheet based off the worst case scenario with them paying the title fees and the transfer fees. If you and the seller have already talked about a commission percentage, go ahead and use that. But if you haven't discussed anything yet, put in your full rate and you can always use that as a negotiation point. If you click on my little net sheet right here, it has a formula in there. Right now it's at 6% of the sales price. So that's what I'm running this one off of. Last thing you're going to need is the seller's mortgage payoff. If they don't give you the mortgage payoff before the appointment, you can always calculate the net sheet without the mortgage and say, hey, we're going to put 0 in for that. Just make sure the seller knows that new net estimate does not cover any mortgage payoff. This document is very clean and simple, and it has plenty of white space down in the bottom so you can whip out the cool pen and do all your cool salesman things and do markdowns and write numbers on there and be totally awesome. And that's it. Net sheet, quick and easy. There's no point in overthinking this because there's so many different things in the offer that can change that net amount by a tiny bit. Just get them a good working estimate and make sure you guess on the low side because it's always better to under promise and over deliver. Now here's a bonus pro tip for you. If you're going into a listing appointment knowing that there's going to be a little bit of resistance on that listing price, like say for example you know that the seller wants to list a little bit higher than what makes sense, you can run a net sheet with a sales price that makes a little bit more sense, and then you can go and say, hey, if you walked away at the end of the day with this amount of money in your bank account from the sale of this house, is that something you'd be happy with? If they say yes, you just completely avoided that entire objection. All right, I said at the end we'd go through some frequently asked questions that the sellers have so that you can be ready for that listing appointment. First thing that sellers ask me a lot is, will there be any out-of-pocket expenses for these title charges? The answer to that is no. As long as the net is in the green, there's not any out-of-pocket expenses for closing. Everything just comes out of the proceeds from the sale. The second thing I get asked a lot is, how long will it take for that money to hit my account? And it kind of depends on what time of day the buyer gets their funds over to the title company and what banks are involved in the transaction, because there may be some delays in processing. So sometimes they get their money on the same day, and sometimes it can take a day or 2. Third question I get asked a lot is, how will I receive the money? At closing, the title company is going to ask for their information and they're going to set up a wire transfer so that it can be all electronic. There it is, seller net sheet, simple and easy. If you thought this video was helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you're getting ready for that listing appointment and you want to make sure that you fill out the listing agreement correctly when you're there, make sure you watch this video that shows you how to fill it out the right way.